Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021 WORT Board of Directors meeting. We don't have Rosie present right now today at this meeting. Elliot is not here and Alita is not here. Also, Marty is not present and Kai is not present. Oh, Kai just joined us. Thank you. There he is. Thank you. So I call the meeting to order and it's 7:06 p.m. If everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda, we can proceed. Are there any objections, additions, or corrections? Hearing none, let's proceed. We'll consider the agenda adopted. The August 2021 draft minutes are in the folder and they're linked in the agenda. And Marla and I both worked on those. And are there any corrections or did we miss anything that you all saw? Hearing none, we will proceed. We're now at communications from the public. Tom Jones said he was going to join the meeting a little late.
Dave, excuse me, we need to move to approve the minutes, which I do. Someone needs to second and we should vote on that.
I think we just do it by acclamation, but we can do a vote.
Pronounce that.
Without objection, the minutes are approved. How's that?
That's fine.
Kai, what do you agree to? Sorry. Okay, thank you. Kai agrees with that approval. Tom will be a little bit late, but he will join the meeting in case there are questions about his report. The Treasurers and Finance Committee report was added late today. I can give you a thumbnail update on that. We are in the process of converting from QuickBooks on a physical computer to QuickBooks Online. And that was approved by the board a month or two ago. And we are hiring the services of an expert to help us make that changeover. And that's in progress. Before we make the change, we want to make sure everything is clear and correct on the current version so that we copy over a correct version. There are, also the Finance Committee is investigating changing our accounts back from Summit Credit Union to Heartland Credit Union for a couple of reasons, as mentioned in the Treasurers and Finance Committee report. Before, when our accounts were at Heartland purchased underwriting from us, and Rosie has explored with Heartland whether they would be interested in resuming that practice. So we'll see.
Well, is there some dissatisfaction with Summit?
The way Summit does the automatic monthly donors is more difficult than Rosie thinks Heartland will be.
Okay.
So it'll take less work on our part to make that happen. The changes hasn't.
Well, excuse me, Dave, too. I think the other reason was Susan has now had to apologize to donors on 2 separate occasions for errors that were made on the end of Summit's handling of the automatic monthly withdrawals. The last being a month ago when they charged everyone double and then put it back 3 days later. which potentially could have made people overdraw. We all kind of agreed that we haven't really been satisfied with the service we received from Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you for that background.
Yeah, that context was really helpful.
The Personnel Committee did not meet. But we've been
Was it
trying to-
before, have you left the treasurer's report?
Yes.
Well,
Do you have questions?
Yeah. Do you want to discuss or mention anything about the issue of the bookkeeper's report line of reporting?
Explain, please.
You raised whether or not the bookkeeper should report to us, to the board, or to Doug.
I think more work needs to be done on that before we're ready to bring it to the board.
Okay,
We haven't talked to the staff about it, and we haven't talked about it really in the Finance Committee, so.
okay.
Yeah, and it is such a hybrid of a position because the board ultimately is responsible for the financial health of the station, yet she needs a staff supervisor to help with the day-to-day needs of the position and also for her HR needs. It's kind of weird.
That
Yeah,
describes WORT.
Not like any other position, you know. The other
Describes
part-time
WORT.
staff positions are clearly held to one department, where the bookkeeper position is one that is not held to one single department.
Thanks.
Other questions or discussion?
Excuse me, Dave, before we
Yes.
move on from the treasurers to the programming, if there's any with programming, were there any communications from the public?
No, there were not.
Okay,
My apologies.
that's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Yep.
And then any executive committee actions since the last meeting?
None.
Thank you. Okay, carry on.
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't get a report from the programming committee that I saw.
I
Any-
can confirm.
Okay,
Yeah, unless you wanted to, I guess a minor update would be that we're considering the possibility of forming subcommittees. So that was in discussion in our last meeting, but I think that's the only major item to report.
thank you. In the future, it would be nice to have a report, so.
Right. Can do.
uh, s- Who's on policies and bylaws now?
Well, Marla and I are.
Okay, anything to report?
Well, we continue to work on the volunteer handbook, and we had a joint meeting with DEI in which they shared some issues that or questions that they had with some of the policies, and we're going to get us some language on how they thought things could be improved. Marla, is that an accurate brief summary of where we're at?
Yes, that is. Thanks.
Great.
You know, it was tough to hold meetings this past month because of, you know, Wortstock and their pledge drive in Willie Street. So, you know, we're still hopeful of getting the volunteer handbook to the volunteers for their comments in fairly short order. We made tremendous progress, but we're not quite done yet.
Mhm.
Thank you. The Personnel Committee was unable to meet to find a time, and so we'll try again next month. Community Advisory Board did not meet. The next report is from the Technology and Facilities Director, and that has an action item. The Engineering Committee and Tom have been working on the fact that our boards, the sound boards, are getting old and starting to fail fairly regularly. And you can fix them by rebooting them, but when you reboot a soundboard when you're on the air, you go quiet. It's like restarting your engines when you're flying. And the type of boards we have are not made anymore, so you can't get spare parts. Tom bought one as an item to take spare parts out of. But more and more things seem to be failing. And the new technology is called audio over IP, which uses Ethernet connections. The neat thing about audio over IP is that it's much more flexible. Instead of running audio wires, you run Ethernet wires, which are just the network jacks that you have on the wall. And it's easier to add and share and move things around and customize the board to do different things for different things. So you can have one configuration of the board for news and talk programming and another configuration for music programming. It would also be possible to do programming from different locations. So in terms of a continuity of operations thing, if we were unable to use the Bedford Street location, we could go to another location and bring up a virtual audio over IP console using a computer or a tablet and program from a different location. We could broadcast from the transmitter, and eventually we could do programming from home. A lot of things would have to happen in order to make that happen. For instance, to make our music library available on the internet to people from remote locations. And we haven't even begun to figure out how to do that yet. But the main issue is that if we're going to replace the boards, we're not going to replace them with an old technology. It makes sense to start with this new audio over IP technology. This is not the final approval to purchase. This is the approval to proceed into getting a final design and then getting numbers to Susan, who would be working on major donor and possibly pledge drive aspects of doing that. So yes, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that at the end. This is not an action item to vote to authorize an $80,000 expenditure. I sent an email earlier because when I read that, I had to think about it for a minute, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this issue up earlier. But we're not going to vote to authorize $80,000 today to buy this equipment. But I think that was more of a discussion item of a serious need that the technology committee brought to our attention that we're going to have to address. And so we begin the conversation today. And if I understood what you were saying, David, do we actually need a vote to authorize the technology to gather more information to bring to the board as to the for a solid recommendation to go forward? What do we need to vote on that, or can we just by acclamation tell this committee to go ahead forward and bring us a recommendation? What's your thoughts?
I think Tom wants the reassurance that we're behind him on this, and that he's not going to get halfway down this road and then have the board say, no, we're not interested, or we didn't approve that, or we don't think it's worth the money, or whatever.
I can also say on my end that Adrian and I have been approached by a grant writer who's interested in writing grants for WORT. So I think one of the first things I would like to set him on would be researching grants for this technological upgrade. Because I think this is something that is grantable, especially if Susan on her end can get the matching donor funds, because grants love to see money coming from other sources. for projects of this type. And I think it is something that, you know, as long as we have a solid plan and we know what we want to do, I think we can find the money.
I think so too. Go ahead, Stu.
Dean, as I understand it, we know we need to replace the board. There are two technologies. There's replacing the board with the existing technology. There's going to the new technology. And this is making the policy choice, knowing that potentially it could cost a fairly large amount of money, but for the technological advances, this is the commitment we're making to the future, and we're authorizing a fairly significant amount of staff and committee time to make a serious proposal. And so I think an actual board vote, as Dave suggested, is appropriate to make that policy choice clear.
What's the language we should use around? I agree with you, Stu, and so what's the language for this motion that we need?
To approve in concept,
Marla and I are already writing it. So the action item is to approve technology and facilities director to pursue an $80,000 new mixing boards and audio over IP technology. Board approves to move forward with pursuing the new technology and authorizes significant staff time and research to pursue.
Right, so it's like it's the pursuit of what action we're going to take next, not the actual purchase, right?
I would
yes.
agree. Just take out the number, because it might be less, it might be more. Just
Okay.
take out 80 grand.
Yeah, I do think the number kind of set in stone, or at least my idea of what we were, you know, reaching towards here.
I would like to say approximately, because it might go higher too.
To me, pursue denotes purchase. Is there another verbiage we could use, like research?
Exploration, I don't know.
Move forward in researching?
I'll say explore. How's that?
Yeah,
Explore is
explore
better.
works.
Yes, thank you. Because pursue to me was confusing.
Okay. Too much action. Marla and I are editing the same motion at the same time. Thank you, Marla. You're doing good.
You too, Dave.
Rebecca, how do you feel about this? Are you with us on this?
Absolutely.
Good, good. I want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we move forward. Well, good.
Okay.
I think we're done with that. Let us pursue someone to make a motion and then someone to second it.
Do you have the language written somewhere that we could see or read it out?
Go ahead, Marla.
Yeah, sure. So the action item was to approve technology and facilities director to explore approximately 80K of new mixing boards and audio over IP technology. I can say Marla moves to approve the staff to move forward with purchasing the new technology and authorizes significant staff time and research to pursue. I shouldn't say pursue, and authorizes significant staff time and research to explore this opportunity.
I'm sorry, that's an unclear motion.
Help me out then, Dean.
Be even more concise and just state the motion. And again, I would suggest we don't put a figure on it, approximately or not, just whatever this comes to. If we get a solid recommendation from the tech committee, I'm going to support it. Frankly, no matter what it costs, 80 or more or less, doesn't really matter to me. I would like to hear a solid recommendation from them without us stating right now in a motion approximately or whatever.
Sue's got a question.
I don't think it's very solid to begin with, right? I think the point is that they're still trying to decide what action they are going to take, right?
Sue's got a question, and then I've got a point. Go ahead, Stu.
Well, no, I've a response to Dean. I think Dean is right. We are endorsing we are agreeing with the report of the technology and facilities. I think it's a committee, not a board, committee, and the tech director, that we begin planning to transfer to audio over internet protocol. We don't need to put a number in it because that is in the report, which we are implicitly accepting by adopting the motion. So I think, to accept the report of the Technology and Facilities Committee to proceed with planning for transfer to AOIP. And,
So,
and to authorize staff and the committee to commit the resources to develop an action plan.
I'm on the engineering committee, and Tom has requested and received 2 different proposals from 2 different vendors, and they're in this $80,000 range.
Yeah, but there's no, what does putting a dollar figure in? We're implicitly acknowledging that by accepting. I mean, if you want to add, to accept the Technology and Facilities Board Committee report and to authorize, that's fine. I mean, all we have to do is accept the report, and that's got the number in it. We don't need to put that in the motion.
I just don't want another meeting coming up after we've done our 2022 budget and put a number in. I don't want people to come back and say, oh, I didn't realize it was 80,000. So,
well, the hell with them, because we have a majority of the board right here, and we're accepting the report, and it says 80,000. What do you say? I don't.
I'm willing to drop the 80,000
Well,
to make it.
Yeah, I don't think
More
it matters
palatable.
too much. It's choice, detail. If you want less detail, that's fine.
right. So.
I would say leave it, just because it's a big ticket item, and sometimes when you're planning, you need to realize what kind of an item that means. And so it's just like a rough estimate, but it still gives an indication that we know that something large is coming, so that if we have to have grant writers or anything involved, something like a plan of action, we have to plan ahead. So we can
Well,
put
yeah,
like rough
I'm sorry,
estimates.
please continue. Yeah, and I want to be sure that those funding sources are in place before any purchases are made. That grants are being pursued, that, donors are interested in donating to it. I think that's a very important part.
Yeah. Well, I think we're in agreement here that we need to move forward with this. It's going to cost us high 5 figures. So what the action item today is not a budgetary vote. It's just an authorization to let this committee go and come back with a specific report to us with a recommendation that will they'll bring to us and said, this is the item we want, this is what it's going to cost, and I think we all understand it's going to be high 5 figures. And then Doug and his team, you can tell the staff to go ahead, bring these grant writers on. That's very cool to hear that we got grant writers ready to go after this. Let's start. We can start to gear up to raise the money for this thing, and then once we get the actual proposal, we can vote on the actual number and make the adjustment to the budget, include it in next year's budget, and go for it. So what we're going to move today is move the electronic committee to go ahead and do all the research and due diligence they need to bring us the real proposal with the actual number and the vendor that we will then go after and find the money to go purchase. So
Yeah, that sounds great.
Could I try a stream?
that's all we got to do. It's a real short thing. Agree, let them go ahead and get us and give us back the concrete proposal, and we're in. We're all in.
Could I try a streamlined motion, which is to accept the report of the Technology and Facilities Committee and authorize staff and committees to proceed with an action plan to implement audio over internet protocol? And that covers fundraising, grant writing, the technology. I mean, it's just, I'm
Yeah,
personally.
good.
Okay, slow down. Let Marla keep up.
Okay,
Okay.
to accept the report of the Technology and Facilities Committee, which gets
Mhm.
us the $80,000 number, puts that on the record, and to authorize staff, and that is implicitly the technology staff and the fundraising staff and
Mhm.
committees to
Mhm.
proceed with an action plan to implement audio over internet protocol technology.
With an action plan to implement
Implement audio over
audio
internet protocol
over
technology.
IP. Okay,
Yeah, that's good, Stu, because that also includes the news and music departments, which
Yeah.
are going to have to train all their volunteers
Includes
on how to
everybody.
use this new technology.
Yes, yes, yes.
I second.
okay.
Actually,
Stu
Rebecca seconded a while ago.
Okay, cool.
So
Yep, I still second. I can second and third if you need.
I got it.
got it.
Oh, yeah, I see it. There it is.
Okay, so I say aye. Are we doing votes
Aye.
or not? I don't know at this point.
Yeah, aye. I
I
vote yes.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you.
Are there any no's? Are there any abstentions?
Okay, thanks,
Uh,
everyone.
Before we
motion
leave,
carries.
before we leave Tom's report, I have a question about the FCC ownership questionnaire that maybe Dave knows the answer to, where it says FRN. Are we supposed to fill anything out, or do we leave that blank?
We leave that blank.
Okay, thank you.
I'm being quiet to let Marla catch up because we.
Go ahead. You're good. Keep going.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
The engineering committee report is in the folder. There were discussions about the audio over IP questions and other issues that are being discussed. There's a real interesting problem that happens with computers connected to the board. Every once in a while, the audio out of the computers starts stuttering. And since we're playing our shows as files on the computer, that's a bad thing. And Tom has replaced all the parts involved, the computer, the sound card, and we still haven't figured out what it is. He's asked on the National Federation of Community Broadcasters email list and gotten a lot of things to look at, but still haven't solved it. So we don't need to do anything as the board.
Just as an update, Dave,
Yeah,
it looks like Dell might be the culprit. Maybe that's my latest theory. So I picked up a used Hewlett-Packard system today that I'm going to build and see if we still have the same issues.
cool. That's fascinating.
It was a weird rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Can I interject here? I apologize, but when I looked at Tom's report, that report did not come from the Technology and Facilities Committee. It came from Tom himself. We moved to accept the report of the Technology and Facilities Committee. Tom, was that a recommendation by the committee or by you to do that?
The thing above was the Technology and Facilities Director report, and now we're talking about the Engineering Committee report, which
I'm talking about what we just agreed to. We said
that was Tom's
Stu-
report.
it was Tom's report. Thank you.
Oh,
Yep.
then my motion should have read the Technology Facility Director's report, not the
Thank you.
committee's report. So,
Right, that's what I wanted to
Okay,
clear. Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks,
Yep.
Stu.
What did I say that you just now all of a sudden agreed to? And am I in trouble?
Yes,
80
yes.
grand for audio over IP.
Yes.
it's
Yes.
coming out of your salary, so you better get the money.
That you'll be writing a check for 80,000.
Yeah,
Thanks.
That's
Tom.
right.
All right.
But
But it's to pursue, not to purchase. Just slow down until I get you some grant money.
yeah, I love this place. The next report is the business and events report, Doug's report. There are no action items in that report. It's an important and good report to look into. Since Doug is also on the board, if you'd like, Doug, you could give a little thumbnail.
What?
You
Oh,
could give
if
a
I would like
thumbnail.
to?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's all in there. I'm really
Yeah.
tired. I was on overtime on like Monday.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm just glad to be here. I will say a couple of things that happened after I wrote my report was we did Willie Street Fair, which was hugely successful. I made a lot of good new relationships. I think we have an in with IO Arcade Bar for possible underwriting. Sybil's going to be pursuing that for me. And then Gary Callis sat down next to me, the head of Wilmar Center. And he said, I know how hard you all been working over at WORT. It's crappy what Bob Queen did to you. We know how hard you worked on WORT stock. And so I wish we could do more, but I want you to have this. And Gary handed me $1,000 check.
Holy cow.
And so
That's
I got a little
good.
teary, but it just showed me how important these relationships are that we have with our partners in the community, and to relish them and to honor them. It was a really special moment for me. He also commented how clean it was backstage on Saturday when we were in charge of the stage. And I said, Gary, we're WORT. Littering is not a concept we're really into at WORT. So it was a really special day on Saturday, and I was really honored to be a part of it. And you know, we have friends at Wilmar, and they really do care about us over there. And I just wanted you all to know that.
Yep, that's great. Stu?
Doug, do you think we should write a note from the board to thank him?
Excellent.
Yeah, I think coming from the board would be really nice.
Excellent idea.
Okay, if it's okay with the board as the secretary, may I just handwrite a note to him and sign it
That
on
would
our
be
behalf?
wonderful. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I haven't
support.
written that particular thank you note yet. I'm still working on the beer donors. Another thing that happened is knowing that we didn't make any money. In fact, right now it's looking like we probably lost $6,000 on WORT stock. And that number may decrease more because Fred Swanson at Madison Home Brewers is working on getting the beer invoices reduced, and he's already reduced 3 of them and cut them in half. So like MHTG is also doing their part to really stand up for us. And you know, again, it's, you know, it's proof that it's about the relationships. It's not about the dollars.
Well, ultimately, it's got to be about the dollars.
Yeah.
Ultimately, yes, but those relationships are the things that pay off down the line, Stu. Those are the things that keep paying off because we honor those relationships, and those are going to be dollars down the line that don't stop.
Personal relationships are crucial to giving.
You know, Bob Queen did a really horrible thing, and a lot of people know what he did.
Okay, but
And
Doug,
it's not the first time he did it, and he's
Doug-
not going to keep going. So
Doug,
I'm
I
just
asked
going
you-
to drop it there.
Doug,
gonna
I
drop
asked
it
you
there.
about this. I asked you about this, and you said it was all fine, that you had talked about it, and it was not a big deal. So I'm confused.
And then he made it a free event, and we didn't realize how bad that would damage us.
Uh-huh.
And then he had signs out on Fair Oaks saying free music, and he did things. And I had people at his event, like Chad Bartel, who emailed and saying how many people were there, and it's not fine. It's really not fine what he did.
So going
Because
forward,
we already had 2 strikes against us with the weather and COVID, and basically he kicked our legs out from under us.
So going forward, are we going to participate in his events next year or not?
Well,
It's going to depend on him.
I don't know if that's the question we need to address right now today.
No, it's
I
not.
think there are issues about, you know, historically, we've always done this in early May. So, you know, this was just an unusual event, and that other people, and we had all these problems, and relationship building is good. Losing $6,000 is not. Hopefully that'll go down. So we have to consider quickly in the next several months, if by May, we can do it again in early May like we always done. And learn
I'm
from
not
this
interested
one.
in going back to May because I've done this event for 8 years.
Yeah.
And out of 8 years, the weather has been absolute crap in May in 6 out of the 7 years. So
we've
I'm
got-
not
we've got a
interested in a
decision
May
ahead
date
of us. Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah, we've
But-
got a lot to, you know, and I think it's a little too early for us to maybe get a fully analyze this. Let's put this on the agenda for next month to get a more thorough review, and we can address some of these issues. And
Yeah, and as I stated in my report this month, that is what I plan to do next month.
yeah, let's yeah, it's a little too emotional right now, and I agree with you, Doug, on a lot of things, and Stuart also, you know, the money wise shit. We shouldn't lose money on a thing, but you know, so let's deal with it next month.
All right. The next report is listener-sponsored development report from Susan. Susan has a board member request that we are in dire shape as far as having sufficient people to answer phones for the current fall pledge drive. And she has that in her report. You are all encouraged to go there and look at that and to volunteer to answer phones at the station if you can and when you can.
Can I ask Doug a question as the staff rep? Doug, in retrospect, it seems to me that even though we didn't know that Wortstock would be moved back when the pledge drive calendar was set, we did know that it would overlap with Willie Street. Did the staff discuss whether or not having the pledge drive overlap the 2 days of Willie Street was going to work or not?
Yes, we did at length.
And staff concluded with Susan that it was doable?
No, Susan does what she wants. We raised our concerns and she ignored them.
Well,
Well, I mean, that's the way it goes down. She does what she wants to do. It's her department. That's what she says.
I thought there was a staff collective that.
Yeah, for the majority of the things that happen at Ward, it is.
Would the schedule for Willie Street was released after the pledge drive time period was announced?
The Willie Street Fair is always 2 weekends after Labor Day, every year.
Okay.
It hasn't changed in 25 years.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Have we always done our fall pledge drive at the same time?
We have never started the pledge drive until she keeps creeping it up earlier every year. Last year, it started on the Wednesday after Willie Street Fair.
Okay, well, that's something that we should just,
And I'm sorry, not last year. I should clarify, that
Yeah.
was 2019. Last year didn't exist.
Right.
Well, it wasn't just the Willie Street days that we're coming up short on phone answers. So I don't know if we're just talking about those, you know, tomorrow morning from 7 to 8. I'm scheduled at 8. I emailed earlier. I'm going to come in a little earlier, but I'm not coming at 7. So I'll cover some of that. But it's not just the 2 Willie Street days that were uncovered. But maybe if we've never done it at the same time as Willie Street, we should, going forward, instruct Susan to say, don't schedule it at the same time as Willie Street's going on. We can consider that and do that, but we've got an unusual time. This is the first time we've let people come back in. We try to do phone answering remotely last couple times. So At this time, we're a little bit short. Is this unusual? It seemed like the email I saw today, there were like 6 slots that were missing, not that many. I wouldn't know if I would call it dire like Dave did, but yeah, there are some empty slots. Is this unusual, or do we need to take some extraordinary measures here?
It's pretty unusual to be this short-staffed at this point.
Uh-huh. And do you think that's because, well, we've got COVID going on, limited time coming in with first time we let people come back in. Could that contribute to some of the hesitancy for volunteers?
I think COVID has contributed to a lot of our woes
Yeah.
at present,
Yeah.
including Wortstock, including phone answerers. You know, and even talking to Gary about Willie Street Fair, he's like, you know, it's just, it wasn't going like it usually went.
I was
You
there
know,
a lot of
every-
it, and I agree, it was well attended, but it seemed like in years past, it was even more attended. It was 1 block less, 80 vendors less than, there's 120 vendors. Normally, there was only 80.
Yeah.
So it was,
Yeah.
everything is different and a little less, and we're coming up short on phone answerers, and maybe one of the reasons was that we overlapped with Willie Street. Maybe we shouldn't do that next year, and going forward, let's put that on our agenda. And
It all depends on where homecoming is for UW football, because that's why she won't budge.
that's, well, we can, we'll weigh in on that too. That's on the table now. Thank you for bringing this up, and we're not gonna start pointing fingers at people, but we can determine this if it comes down, if board has to weigh in on this and set the time, we will. If not, if collective comes up with a proposal to us, that's fine. If not, we'll call it if there's a problem next. So, you know what I'm saying? This is where we're at today. We're locked in. We got to cover our asses as best we can. I'll get there as early as I can tomorrow to cover that 1 empty spot. And others we can scramble around to try to cover.
Actually, Dean, I've been there at 7 o'clock every day this week.
I know you were letting me in when I was there last time. You let me in tomorrow too.
So there will be someone there at 7 tomorrow,
Yeah,
providing this
you
meeting
know.
doesn't go till 11 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
done.
we won't let it go till 11.
I just wanted to comment, Dean, that the dire word was in Susan's report. It's not my word. I asked Susan in a direct email about why not phone answering from home.
Right.
And she said the people who did phone answering from home in the previous drive got burned out. And so people weren't willing to do that. And they were using a paper method this time, so that didn't support working from home, so or answering from home. So I think that we've also seen employers all over Madison, and in fact, all over the country, having a hard time getting employees. And so our phone answerers are getting older, just like our donor base is, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that contributed. Tom, you have your hand up.
Just a real quick for answering remotely. I did for Rock and John last Saturday just because there was like no one else signed up. Lang ended up staying. But the problem with having hosts live in the studio and having remote phone answers is you can't take the pledges into and hand them to the hosts in there to talk about it on the radio and thank them, thank the donors on the radio. So that's one of the big issues with that.
Good point.
And I'll add that we have a lot more hosts coming in this pledge drive. It's kind of been overwhelming. So there are a lot of shows that are live, a lot more than even last drive.
Danielle called in a pledge during the jazz show today, and Sybil took her pledge, and Danielle said, "Way to go!" And she said, "They made me do this." All right.
It does feel a little more like a pledge drive, I gotta say, running the sheets into the house and stuff, like,
And hearing the thank yous on the
you
air.
know, yeah,
same-
those good feelings are, you know, it's good. I'm really grateful for everyone that is coming in to answer phones.
And that makes the donor feel more warm and fuzzy when that happens. So, all right. Music director report was in the folder, and it's linked on the agenda. No action items there. The digital audio production director report, the first one is there in the folder. There are no action items on that. Good to hear what's going on. You get a feel of the station when you see all these reports. So the news talk and public affairs report discusses Shelley's issues with the subpoena. And Shelley, since we have you on the phone, I don't think you asked the board whether the board was willing to pay for a $10,000 to $20,000 appeal. And I think the board would look on that favorably. What are your thoughts?
I don't think that's wise. Especially when there's no guarantee of winning. Molly might say something different. I don't know, looking at the budget, that's a lot of money that could pay for a whole year of buzz producing. So yeah, I mean, everything's in the works. I know the Isthmus folks are really working on this to see if they can make it happen. I'm just kind of resigned myself. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, I'm flattered. I don't know. What does the rest of the board think about that proposal?
Board members, how feel you about $10,000 to $20,000 to pay for an attorney to appeal Shelley's order to testify?
Is this what you want, Shelley? Because just judging from the preliminary email that you sent out earlier, it sounded like maybe you didn't want to. I don't know if you feel resigned because you feel like there's not a chance, or if you because the money, or because it's, you know, like, what do you really believe? It's hard to really parse out, you know, how you feel about it and separate it from the circumstance of, you know, how much everything costs, the price that you have to give up for going towards it. So what do you actually feel like, you know, like, irregardless of price, irregardless of like success, like, is this what you would want?
No, of course not. Let me send you 2 documents that might help. I am resigned to just doing it because I don't really have another choice, but I don't feel like there is another choice, but let me send you a letter from WKOW. It seems like WKOW is into it, and Isthmus would be if their insurance covered it, but it's looking like their insurance doesn't cover it. But no, I don't believe that reporters should be compelled to testify, and it has real implications for the SHIELD law going forward for all reporters in Wisconsin, because there isn't a lot of precedent here. It hasn't really been decided. And if the appeals court ruled that we did have to testify, it would weaken the statute. Any reporter witnessing a crime in the course of reporting without other witnesses, the state could say, well, we couldn't find any of their witnesses, so we're going to compel the journalists to testify.
Shelley,
That's very chilling.
You have something in the background. I'm hearing another conversation.
Sorry. keep the radio on in case we go off air.
Well, thank you.
Right. I don't know if you caught that. I was just saying that it would have implications for the state statute. So that's another consideration, is, do we think we do have a good chance? Because if we don't, we're weakening the statute for everyone in Wisconsin, which
I'm not sure what you mean, though. Are you saying you want the money to pay the attorney to appeal this, or you're saying you don't want to appeal this?
I would want to appeal it, but that's another consideration too. And that's a conversation to have with the lawyer that will cost us another $500. So I'm just, I know Isthmus did have that conversation with James, and he raised that as one possible result. I think he wants to appeal it. I think WKOW wants to appeal it. Isthmus wishes that they could, but they're trying to figure out how to make that feasible. So no, we don't want to testify. We do want to appeal. $10,000 is a lot of money.
Stu?
And just for a further complication, regardless of our individual or collective political feelings, I think it's fair to say that a fair segment of the community thinks that people who beat up a Wisconsin state senator should be prosecuted, and to have a WORT employee participate in making that prosecution more difficult would not be a uniformly popular thing.
But
It's not about what's popular, it's about what's right,
But remember, we also have a fiduciary responsibility to the ongoing health of the organization. And I just think that there are people who would think that was not a thing they wanted to continue to endorse. I just think that is something that should be acknowledged, regardless of whether or not it's right, and regardless of whether or not what we think is right.
I want to address what Stu's point. So yes, that has come up as a criticism and a complication here. This case is really complicated because it's easy to read, even in the news reports, that, oh, why can't they just testify? What's the big deal, right? It's about the principle of a reporter being compelled to testify and the fact that there were hundreds of other witnesses, right? Yet they can't find any of those to compel to testify, only 3 journalists there in a news gathering capacity. So I understand that there is potential blowback of a real assault. So that's why it is hard to fundraise off of. If we needed to, it is hard to tell the story neatly because it is so complicated.
Yeah. David, Charlie, I thought I saw in an email earlier that you said KOW, because of their insurance, they might already have this covered and might be willing to carry us on as far as without us paying it. So like maybe that's
so can I just say that,
are you okay? What's going on?
Can I just say that this is changing every day? Like
so let's just wait. Let's keep us up to speed on it. And the board has expressed an interest in supporting you. But I don't think we have we're not in a position to make a decision right now. If things change, just keep us up to speed on this. And if we have to make a decision quickly before the next board meeting, we can call a special meeting. We want to support you.
Thank you. 2 notes about.
Well, wait, but I don't think there's a specific money request that we have to decide on tonight.
Yeah, I will let you know dates. The deadline to file an appeal is October 1st. That at least that's what we were able to deduce. That the lawyer got it wrong. So I think it's October 1st. And the trial is mid-October. So the week of the board meeting, that Monday and Tuesday is the trial. So
there's a time limit on this.
Board meeting.
Yeah.
The executive committee could approve it before the meeting.
So let's these guys come to a deal or some kind of a plea agreement before this.
They were offered a plea deal. I think it was either time served or community service or something, and they did not take it, which signals to me that they think they have a pretty strong case. which
Yeah.
might be why the EA is so desperate to have reporters testify, because he didn't do his homework.
Yeah, well, they keep us up to speed on it, and like the board is offered you many times. We're going to support you. You're our staff. You were there on an assignment from us. We got your back. If it comes down to decision making with this money, we'll discuss it then. But thank you for keeping us up to speed, and appreciate you sending these emails to keep us in the loop here on everything going forward, and keep doing that. So when we meet again to discuss this, if we have to, we'll have all that information coming to us as you get it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dean. Go ahead, Tom.
Just real quick, if you want me to, I can research if our insurance coverage would cover something like this. We haven't delved into that. And I'm a little loath to do so, considering that the Eugene thing going on and everything as well. But there might be some, I mean, we did
That
get the
was-
umbrella policy, so.
I know, that was an advice from the lawyer. Isthmus has essentially the same umbrella policy that we do. It doesn't cover it. They have specialized media insurance, like that they get from like a boutique media seller, and they thought it would be covered, except it's not. They learned yesterday because of the hearing, they decided that, nope, we're not, you're pursuing the appeal, so we're not going to cover it. So I highly doubt it. I don't want to mess with insurance, but sure, that would be nice. Thank you.
Tom, would you check with Hub Insurance to see if they have a different rider or a different package that would cover
Yeah, I'll check.
news reporters?
I mean, this is paying an attorney as opposed to liability. So I don't know, but I mean, hell, we've got terrorist insurance, so we should have this.
Don't think we are. This does raise a question though, for a budget time. We don't have specialized media insurance. And that's something we might want to look into. It's like $5,000 for Isthmus. But if something comes up in reporting, rather than lose our umbrella policy again, it might be really wise to have that. So that's something to think about.
I'll check.
The other thing is that because these two lawsuits have been filed against Cincinnati, there is a non-zero probability that our current insurer will say we don't want to renew as of 2022. So that's another drinking game issue.
I'll drink to that.
All right. Volunteer. I think that's the end of the News Talk and Public Affairs report. Volunteer outreach report from Adrian is very good. No action items for the board to consider, but good discussion. There is one issue that Adrian mentioned in an email and in a report, and that is that she made an error in editing a recent public affairs show, and so she is backing out of working so hard on the public affairs show and looking for a producer for that show. So, but there's no action required by the board.
Who's been subbing? How are we doing the engineer for that now? Because I think Aaron was on it this last Monday, right?
So we're not allowing individuals to be into the access our individuals into the station yet. They can do it online. Aaron is assisting Adrienne with pre-production before and after the mistake, which was, yeah.
Okay, just curious about what the plan was.
Yeah.
All right. There is a report from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion group, and there are no action items. There's a report of their work. It's in the folder. That brings us to the end of our reports. I have no new business on the agenda. Are there any people wishing to bring up new business? That's a wonderful sound. The president would entertain a motion to adjourn. Stu moves to adjourn. Who would like to second?
Sure,
Yes,
I'll second.
Two people did it, but Kai, I heard first. All in favor, say aye. Or
Aye.
raise your hands. Aye.
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 All opposed, say no. And are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank
Hey,
you very
good night,
much.
everybody.
Everyone.
Good night.